Hello everyone and welcome back to the Down Under bunker here in Sydney, Australia. Today is a very exciting day. I'm going to play Axis and Allies Anniversary Edition, and the mat has just arrived in the post. Arrived a couple of days ago and very keen to play on it. So I couldn't find the actual board game anywhere because it's out of print. So just ordered the mat and using pieces from the Axis and Allies Global 1940. So you can see the artillery's different and Italian stuff is also different. Most of the units will be different. Another quick note, the factories. I've ordered some little model factories, but the numbers don't matter. There are no major, minor factories in this game. It will just be based off the IPC value of the country, so don't worry about the numbers. Another thing, the anti-aircraft guns, using the ones from the A&A 1940 game instead of the grey ones, because I cannot find those anywhere either. But they won't be taken as casualties, obviously, and they'll switch hands if captured. So I think that's all I have to go through to mention. Should be a fun game, keen to get into it. So I'll see you after round one. See if there are any strategies that I can do. Well, it's the end of round one in this game of Axis and Allies Anniversary Edition. And I have no idea who's winning because I've never played this game before. So I'll take you through what happened in the round. And the Germans, start with them. They launched Operation Barbarossa, causing the Russians to just bulk up everything in Belarus and evacuate Karelia completely. They also bought 9 infantry and an artillery in Germany, bulked up France with the help of Italy as well. Came and destroyed the battleship and transport that was there, and also the destroyer that was there. There was a cruiser left there, but then the Russian sub decided to go for it and got a hit on the surprise strike. Battleship destroyed 2 submarines and a fighter, so that was not good. What else happened? Oh, hang on. Shouldn't there be a 3rd transport there? There should be. Hang on. Here we go. Because the fighter got a hit, but so did the battleship when it was just a fighter versus battleship. So there you go. What else? So now the British have got a lot of stuff in there. 3 transports now that can take all of that stuff maybe to Norway, Finland, to help out the Russians. The Americans built a carrier over here, and now all of that stuff can reach Morocco, Algeria. The Germans launched an attack into Egypt with 2 infantry and artillery, a couple tanks and their bomber, and it was a total wipeout. The British had 3 units left there, an artillery, a tank and a fighter. After the Germans got 3 hits that round, and the British units all got hits, so the Germans were just left with a bomber. Then the Italians came and took it, so not much loss there. The British built a factory in India because there wasn't one there to start with, so decided to get one in there. The Japanese have expanded quite a lot, taking Borneo, East Indies, Philippines, Kuantan, and starting their assault into China. Built a couple transports, but then vacated Manchuria. Now those 7 infantry have an interesting option to head into there, but they'll probably get destroyed if they do. The Australians down here did nothing, unfortunately. The Americans just got the carrier and destroyer from down in season 44 and brought them up, put another fighter on there, threaten the Japanese now. I'm going to be playing with a 15 Victory City win condition, so That's the default victories city condition, so whoever can get there first will win. And the Japanese have already taken 2, which is Hong Kong and Manila. And India, I'm not sure how long that will last. Anyway, interesting first round, learning about the game. Interesting to see what happens after this next round, and you'll find out right after this. So it's the end of round 2, about to start round 3 in this game of Anniversary. And it's an interesting game. I'm very much enjoying it currently. Take you through what happened in the round. Start with the Germans here, and they sent everything they could into Karelia, but you can see how that ended up. Had 5 tanks there, which in this game it seems like a lot to me, but Belarusian troops came in and took right back. Anyway, still getting used to the fact that tanks actually only cost $5, unlike all the other games where they cost 6, so you can buy a whole lot more of them. The Germans and Italians got bombed for 6 each. Both of them getting 6 damage markers on there. So that will cost a bit of money. The Americans have started Operation Torch, bringing down a few troops into Morocco, Algeria. Now that will cut the Italian $5 bonus, although Italy did collect $24 this turn. It's quite a lot, I'm assuming, for them. Just, build a lot of stuff with that. The Americans have also bought more transports, more infantry, more tanks, ready to bring them over as well next turn. The British, as you saw, had landed in Norway, and they've got quite a fleet there, so I don't think any amount of German planes, unless they build a lot of them, will be able to take that out. The Russians built a tank this turn, and another fighter, so they're really getting the counter-attack units in, and well, it's not looking so good for the Germans on the Eastern Front currently. The Russians also did push back into Ukraine, so it's looking good for them. The Japanese have marched all over China, only 2 spaces left, but one of them is backed up by the Russians. The blue fighter, by the way, is the Chinese fighter that they started with, just to make sure that I don't get that confused with any American fighters. What I've discovered is that China is a bit of a walkover in this game. They really don't get many units at all, and they're just there as an inconvenience. The British kind of regretting the factory in India. The Japanese can currently bring 4 infantry and a tank in there, and also 9 fighters. I don't think they'll do that though, because guaranteed to lose 3-4 fighters, which is a turn's build. The Japanese really have no opposition in the Pacific. The only fleets that remain are the American one there, and the British destroyer basically in Australia. New Guinea could be taken this turn by an infantry on that transport, just down there, but the Australians could do something about that. Hawaii was taken, and the Japanese transport was taken out by a plane. So, total count for victory cities is, the Japanese have 4, the Italians 1, the Germans 3. So that's 8 victory cities, and that means the Allies have 10, I think. So, still a ways to go in this game. Turning out to be a very fun game. And, oh hang on, no, the Japanese have 5 victory cities. What about Manila? So that means they have 9. So it's 9 apiece currently, all even. Yep, fun game, really enjoying it, and see you after round 3. It's the end of round 3 and about to start round 4 here in the Down Under bunker in this game of Axis and Allies Anniversary Edition. And I don't know much about the game because I haven't played it much, but I think I know that the Germans and Italians aren't doing so well. You can see down in Africa the Americans have almost taken them out, just a few Italian troops left there. And then now the British have even started landing troops in Europe, with that fleet not being endangered by any planes. The British also backed that up by a battleship this round as well, just to make sure of that. The Russians came and took Finland this turn, and so there's no money there for the Germans. And the Russians also have backed out of Baltic states, Eastern Poland and Ukraine, but then left lots of units to counter-attack any German advances into any territories. So there's all that stuff in Belarus, lots of men in Eastern Ukraine, Caucasus have a few stuff, couple tanks and planes in Russia as well. All of that can hit pretty much any one of these territories at the front line. In China, the Japanese came and took Xinjiang. Just one Chinese territory left now. Backed up by the Russians though, so not a pushover, but still pretty easy. The Japanese came and took the Russians out there. Now they've got free roaming territory all along there. So I think the Germans do need the Japanese to help them with Russia, because they can't do it on themselves, that's for sure. But in the Pacific, Japanese have total control. India has 10 infantry and an artillery, so it's possible that they could hold on, possible that that factory was a good idea. But then Japan just built 3 infantry and 3 artillery on 3 transports that can come 1, 2 down to there, and then next turn into India. And plus there'll be a couple more tanks as well. So India will probably be taking a couple turns. They came and took New Guinea this turn, left the undefended transport, so the Australians did something and came and took that transport out, landed an infantry and an artillery on New Guinea, and well, you can see how that ended up. 2 rounds of combat, 2 British units gone. The Americans building a couple units here to bring them across to Hawaii, I'm assuming. Try to take that back, but then the Japanese, of course, put that navy in reach of Hawaii, and then building a couple more naval units there as well. Over on this side, the Americans also just building more units to bring across. That's about it. The Germans and the Italians got bombed only for 2 and 1, so not much damage there. But the Americans also did bring a second bomber over from the western United States. Germans just building more infantry and tanks and planes, but it's not looking good for them. They'll probably need more support from the Italians. But we'll find out what happens right after this. Alright, it's the end of round 4 in this game of Anniversary Edition, and still I would probably say the Allies are in front with all that's happened so far. So I'll take you through what happened there. Eastern Front, the Germans pushed everything they could into Eastern Poland, and they've got stacks of stuff there now. The Russians did put a guy into Warsaw, and that's why you can see the Italians are there taking it back for the Germans. The Italians also bringing up some other stuff and buying a few tanks there. But the Russians also just putting a couple of big stacks of men, artillery and tanks along those two, and also buying yet another fighter. So lots of counter-attack potential for the Russians there. So the Germans have got to be careful now. And the Germans also did get bombed for 8 this turn by the 2 American bombers. The British bomber did try to bomb Italy, but got shot down. Threats for landing in France or northwestern Europe are really starting to rise from the British, at least. Got 4 transports that can take across all that stuff. It's not looking good for them on that front. the Americans are just buying a whole heap of stuff as well, and then just bringing dudes across Africa, making sure the Italians stay out with their transport there. But yeah, coming down south where these Italian units still are. Over here in India, the British bought 3 tanks. Just spent $15 down here because they could. See what the Japanese do. They can still get all of this stuff over plus 7 fighters, so they'll probably do it. Japanese also bought a bomber. Can it make it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. So the bomber can't make it, but that bomber was made for other purposes. The Japanese also are coming across the top here, just taking out those dollars. Coming and taking the British destroyer there off the waters down to the bottom of the ocean. Obviously with the battleship there, didn't matter if the British destroyer got a hit back. The Americans came and took Hawaii with 2 lost men in the process as well. Japanese will undoubtedly take out the 2 transports, but will they take back Hawaii? Who knows. The Americans also built a battleship trying to somehow get a hold in the Pacific, but it's not really working out for them. Good game so far. I think that's all that's happened in the round. But we'll see what happens after round 5 now. Flying through this game and see if India will fall, because that's definitely the big battle for this next turn. It's the end of round 5 and straight away you'll see India did fall. It fell with 2 tanks left for the Japanese and not 1 loss from the planes. The anti-aircraft gun completely missed. It was an interesting battle with the British getting I think 7 out of 10 infantry hits on the first round, and then the second round no hits at all, so bit of a swing from firing perfectly to firing blanks. The Japanese though have expanded like there's no opposition, and there pretty much isn't, especially down here, taking the Solomon Islands and New Zealand this round and threatening to take Australia. They brought a couple transports worth of stuff down to the Caroline Islands, while the Americans took out a submarine that was there, but the destroyer is more there just to be a blocker. The Americans also investing a lot of money into the Pacific this turn, with I think 1 battleship, a cruiser and another destroyer bought in there for $40 of their 40, I think it was $50 in fact this turn. With the other 10 they bought a fighter and placed it over in the eastern United States. The Italians came out and destroyed the American carrier and destroyer that was there without a single hit back, not even a dent to the battleship. So that's hurting the Americans now. They decided not to build any defences because the British can come down and destroy it, I'm sure. The British though did land in France successfully, taking that, but then the Italians came right back. The Italians, I don't think, lost a unit while taking it back. The Italians did have a busy turn with not only France and Sea Zone 12, but they also came into the Ukraine this turn, taking out just the 1 infantry that was there, but now the Russians have to deal with them, and the German force that is got I think 9 tanks now. They decided to put everything they could into Leningrad to try to defend that. If the Germans were to attack, I would imagine that they would win, but then the counter-attack by the Russians would probably take it back, so Germans have a bit of thinking to do. The Germans didn't get bombers turned because they shot down the bomber. There's only one American bomber which came down and took out the German transport that was in season 14 and landed in Egypt. The Americans bringing a small force that way just to see what they can do to stop the Japanese from overrunning Stalingrad straight away. Also just coming down south further, and they're just going to clear out those Italian units that are there, get that money back to the British. The Japanese also making their way across Russia slowly but surely, and they also built a whole new fleet and they were thinking that the Americans were going to build more ships, so they decided to do exactly that. And that's about it from this round. Still interesting game, really enjoying it, and find out what happens right after this. It's the end of round 6 here in the Down Under bunker, and we're about to start round 7. During filming I did take a 2-week break because I've had some other things on at the moment, but now getting right back into it. And during the 2 weeks, the little factories have arrived. So they're all over the board now, making it look a lot better. So let's get back into the round, if I can remember what happened. But the Germans, they've pushed into eastern Poland, but then got pushed out of the Baltic states. So the Russians there, with only one man left and a lot of firepower there, a lot of artillery and tanks. And you do just wonder what happens if the Germans were to throw everything they had at the Baltic states, and would they destroy a lot of that and then push up towards Karelia? Oh, and a quick note, I have changed the victory conditions from 15 victory cities to 12, and currently the Axis are on 11 thanks to the Japanese, who I believe have 7 of those. Let's move on to Russia now. And Russia have just bulked up and, as I said, counter-attacked into the Baltic states. And into Ukraine as well. They've got 4 planes there now, just doing a lot of damage, but now the Japanese are on the way. So they've got to take care of that stuff and take back some of the territory that they've lost. In China, the Japanese are probably finally going to make their big push with bringing a couple tanks and fighter up there and just take out the Japanese. This Russian sub, who's been making its way across the board the whole game, has made it in striking range of these 2 aircraft carriers, and the Japanese didn't have any destroyers with them, so they've had to retreat them and join up with some destroyers. So actually a pretty good move there by the Russians. The Italian fleet that was in there has been dispatched without loss by the British, and the British are even buying another battleship there. The British and Americans have also just stacked up everything in Morocco, Algeria and Gibraltar. Now they can threaten Italy and France and even northwestern Europe, so it's a bit of a bad situation for the Italians, and they've even been bombed as well. The Italians are also fully out of Africa, with the British and Americans taking them out. Australia was also taken, Hawaii is still there. The 2 transports that the Japanese used to take it were taken out by the Americans. The Japanese have a lot of fleets in range. Actually no, this one is not in range, but this one is in range of the American fleet, and they probably wouldn't attack, but once this one gets in range, and this one as well, the Japanese are looking pretty strong, and the Americans can't really do anything about it when the Japanese are earning about $20 more, and the Americans also have to do stuff in Europe. The Americans though have just become annoying in the Middle East, and the Japanese will probably have to spend $15 a turn in India to get rid of that before they can start pushing up into Stalingrad. But getting a bit tense now. The Axis are certainly on top with the Japanese flying, but I think the one more victory city, I reckon the Axis could take it, but you never know. With landings starting in France and Italy, if Germans and Italians get out of the game, then all the attention's on Japan, and I think the Japanese would fall to that. So, interesting game, and I'll see you after round 7. Well, it's the end of round 7, start of round 8, and what a difference a round can make for the Allies. It's been a very good round for them this round. There is also currently a thunderstorm going outside, so if you hear any rumbling, that would be it. But let's go through the round. Big story from the round, France was taken with only the loss of 2 British men, and the Americans came in and backed that up. So that is looking very secure. Might even think about buying a factory there, and then start purchasing units on mainland Europe. The Germans and Italians have both been bombed, and the Italians are now really hurting economically, only earning $9 a round. So if they get bombed some more, that's just going to be it for them. The Americans are just bulking up in Persia, making the Japanese spend more money in India than all the way over here, making in this massive fleet face-off. The Americans buying a battleship and a full aircraft carrier, and the Japanese just putting more stuff in range of that, including a bomber now. Japanese also buying a couple transports and some land units are there. They might just come and take Alaska. Japanese failed in their attack on Shanghai, I believe. And only 1 Chinese man was lost, compared to, I believe, 4 Japanese guys. So opens the door for the Russians to counterattack and get China back in the game a little bit. The Germans piled everything they could into the Baltic states and were left with 4 tanks after that. The Russians decided not to counterattack, but instead bulking everything in Karelia. Got 4 tanks in Moscow right now, and probably will counterattack the Japanese next turn. Good force in eastern Ukraine as well. The Germans did build up quite a few round units this turn though, so they'll be probably actually heading towards France. So Germans have lots of issues at the moment. The British and Americans just coming out of America, getting up to where it matters. Japanese are putting their fleet there, and the Russian sub is still in range, so he's doing his thing. I don't think the Japanese are strong enough just yet to attack Persia. Maybe if they got all 4 fighters, but that's risking a few units there. And that's about it from this round, but overall good round for the Allies, and oh yes, the British are building more units to come over. So the Germans and Italians are not looking good at all. But that's about it. So I'll see you after round 8. And this game continues to surprise us, but see what happens right after this. It's the end of round 8 and the Allies are in panic mode. The Japanese have expanded heaps this round. But we'll start in Europe, and the Germans tried to attack France but just couldn't budge against all of that stuff that was there. Got 5 infantry out of there, I think, but lost more themselves. They did get bombed this round quite a bit, but they're defending Poland massively and Germany massively, and they'll probably want to start taking France soon. The Italians defending Rome because it's their only victory city, because the Axis are only 1 victory city away from winning the game. The Russians, helping out China this round, didn't decide to attack Germany, but did attack Japan, taking out the stuff that was there, and now hopefully taking out those $4 as well. The big story of the round, though, is the Japanese took out the navy that was there and landed in western United States. And they also did a landing in Alaska as well. So the Americans are losing heaps of cash now. And it's not out of the picture that the Japanese would buy 10 tanks on there and then start heading across to Ottawa and Washington. So to counter that, the Allies bought a whole stack of tanks and a single artillery in Washington and brought over the stuff from the UK into Ottawa. But just even a couple turns of Japan buying 10 tanks probably wouldn't be enough to stop that, especially because the Americans are low on cash now. And if the Germans take France, then, well, they win the game as well. So the Allies are not looking good at all. We'll keep playing though, see what happens, but after this next round we might have to stop it if it's just looking like the Japanese will win and there's no point in continuing. Yeah, that's about it from this round, and I'll see you right after round 9, see if the Japanese can just force the Allies to surrender. So it's the end of round 9 and I am going to call the game right there with an Axis victory, mostly thanks to the Japanese. It's been a good game, but I'll run you through the last round. The Americans surprisingly took Calcutta against the odds, but I don't think that would have mattered too much, because when you come look over here, you see the Japanese have like stacks and stacks of tanks, heaps of stuff up there as well. Yeah, then you come over and see what the American and British have got. You'll just see 10 tanks a turn there will completely finish the game off. So the British did build a factory there, but just desperation. France held against some attacks this turn. Poland got taken, but then the Italians came and took it back. I think that's like the first thing they ever did this game, but it was a good move for them. Nothing else really happened this round, but thanks so much for watching everyone, and I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Down Under Bunker, signing off.